You don't look black. These kind of people don't realize that black comes in many different shades.
I identify as a black man with the full understanding that the rest of the world may not share that impression.
You might not look black, but you got the black blood into you. I'm not white. I am black. I am a black person.
Racial passing is when a person classified as a member of one racial group is accepted as a member of another. It was used to escape slavery, like Ellen and William Craft did in 1848. Ellen was mixed race with a very light skin. William's master allowed him to work as a carpenter for fees, so he managed to save some money. They married and decided they wouldn't have a family in slavery, so they elaborated a fine plan to escape. Because Ellen was very light-skinned, she could pass as white, so she would play the role of the master, and William of her personal servant. But passing as white wasn't enough. It wasn't common for a white lady to travel alone with her slave. So Ellen dressed as a man. Ellen, a black woman, was passing as a white man. They managed to reach the north and live in freedom. To pass during slavery meant to escape not from blackness but from slavery. After slavery was abolished, segregation laws were strictly imposed during the Jim Crow era. These laws mandated the segregation of public places between white and black people. In the Jim Crow era, passing as white happened mainly to have access to the white privileges. Being profiled as black meant being deprived of many privileges and rights and being exposed to aggression and injustice. Being white was like a magical cloak. It made their worth as a human being visible to the racist world. Passing became the decision of many young light-skinned people. The promised heaven was on the other side, the white side. The prospects of a better life on the other side gave them a sufficient reason to turn their backs on their black family and culture.
So you're thinking about passing for white?
How can I help but think about it?
But their claim to belong to a group that they were not legally assigned to was a risky one. If they were identified, they were in real trouble.
Are you black?
No, I'm as white as you!
You're lying!
I'm not!
Most people passing as white would cut all ties with their black families and left no trace of themselves, in fear of being caught.
Even if you pass me on the street, you'll have to pass me by. But you don't know what it is to look white and be black.
As Alison Hobbs in her book A Chosen Exile writes, passing was an exile for them, chosen or not chosen. She looks at racial passing not as a practice to gain privileges, but as an experience of profound loss. They had to leave behind families, friends, and all connection with their black community. The painful loss they had to suffer throughout their lives was far more than what they gained and enjoyed on the other side. Some people think we are way past those horrifying and inhumane segregation laws in the 21st century. We have far more immigration and interracial marriages nowadays. The racial dynamics of the 21st century has allowed people of color to enjoy economic, political, and social freedom that was not available to the previous generations. The increase in the number of mixed-race born children and the change in the racial landscape has created new possibilities and choices that were not imaginable and available to those living a century ago. This means people of color can proudly claim a black identity without having to suffer from the inequalities, horrors, and cruelties directed at black people a generation ago. This leads us to an important question. Has passing become passé in the 21st century? Definitely not.
I'm not ashamed to admit, as a 9-year-old in the 80s, I went with the path of least resistance. Passing for me was a survival mechanism.
It's true that passing doesn't happen as it used to a century ago, but it has not disappeared from our societies.
After uncovering her mother's secret. Her mother was living as a white woman, but was mixed race.
Racial passing as a social practice of identity and identification has taken new forms. Passing is still relevant because we haven't reached political equality and full citizenship rights. Passing is still an issue because racial considerations shade every aspect of life, from employment and university admissions to criminal justice. The difference from the past is that instead of public segregation laws, we have day-to-day racial inequalities that are covertly in practice and enforced. No institution will acknowledge the existence of such racist practices. Frantz Fanon, in Black Skins, White Masks, argues that contemporary colonialism is not about the whip, it's not in the body but in the mind. It imposes white standards on black people. Since you're born, they teach you that the right way to talk is the white way. Fanon says that this is a more violent form of oppression. It's a psychological imposition. Most sociologists and anthropologists argue that passing the 21st century has switched away from skin color towards performance. This means more than looking white. Passing has become the practice of acting white, or looking white on paper.
Use your white voice.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, this is Langston from Regal View.
Also, passing the 21st century goes beyond a simplistic black and white binary. Instead of ending, passing has expanded. We are all passing in one way or another.
I am a Muslim, but I don't wear a hijab. There's a lot of hate towards Muslims, this hatred towards Arabs that's scary, super scary for someone like me.
You might be thinking, do the mixed race people have to choose between one race or the other?
That literally said to me, are you black or are you white? You can't be both, you've got to pick one.
Couldn't we just embrace hybrid identities? Not black or white, but black and white. Well, a century ago, hybrid identities weren't welcome at all. For example, Jean Toomer, a novelist in the early 20th century, resisted choosing a racial identity. He believed tying the person to one of their parts is to lose them. Regardless of his efforts to support hybrid identity, Toomer's idea didn't get much attention in the Jim Crow era. It's true that the 21st century, with its many possibilities of identities, welcomes hybridity more than the previous generations. Even so, we are far from fully embracing hybrid identities. Those who identify as mixed race sometimes receive harsh treatment within black communities, being labeled as sellouts, traitors, not allies. Also, from the white point of view, they are still profiled as racialized identities, not pure.
So you could never, unless you walk the shoes of a mixed race person, know what it's like to not feel accepted by either side.
So, although the 21st century has embraced hybridity to some extent, the issues of race and identity remain. As Alison Hobbs says, racially ambiguous people are racially marked and still must negotiate the terrain of a racist society. Passing not only questions, but also blurs the rigid line between binaries of race. One lesson to learn from those who pass is that identity is not so finely carved into a person. As Hobbes says, racial identity is an active and close association between people. It is a historically contingent relationship that changed in response to various interactions and in the context of different social spaces. We are continually creating our identities through interactions and performances in society. Each generation has its own ideologies and prejudices against certain identities. The standards for race, class, gender, sexuality in our time has changed from those of a century ago. We are responsible for navigating the social currents and racial realities of our time. We should ask ourselves how the ideologies for or against certain identities can affect people's understanding of who they are. Suppose we conform to social prescriptions of identity. In that case, we will lose our agency and autonomy in creating our own identity. We should free ourselves from rigid definitions and divisions of race and stop shaming people for trying to create their own unique identities.
Personally, I've never tried to hide any part of me. I just wanted to be me, so.
The concept of passing has been explored in many great novels and movies. The most recent one in literature is the award-winning historical novel The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. It's a fantastic narrative of passing and identity. I'll be making a video next week reviewing the novel. If you're interested in knowing more about the concept of passing literature, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.